Sleep. Something, in my opinion, that still isn't taken seriously enough. Deteriorated immune system and mental health, doubled cancer risk, blood sugar imbalance, random hunger urges, all that from just getting less than 6 to 7 hours of sleep a night. Today we're breaking down one of the most important books I've come across, Why We Sleep, by Matthew Walker, who has a PhD in neuroscience and has dedicated his entire career to studying sleep. And I'll be honest, reading through this genuinely made me want to go to bed earlier, which is not something I expected a book to do to me. Today, I'm covering what sleep actually does to your body, along with the 2 hidden forces controlling whether you feel awake or completely useless on any given day. Let's get into it. Here's the simplest way to think about sleep. Your body is a device, and sleep is the only charger that it has. Matthew Walker makes it very clear. Sleep doesn't just benefit one part of you, it benefits every part. Your brain, heart, immune system, hormones, metabolism, mental health, memory and mood as well. There is no organ in your body, no process in your brain that isn't improved by sleep and isn't hurt by the lack of it. And yet, we live in a culture that treats staying up late like a personality trait and brags about 4 a.m. wake-ups as if running on no sleep is the secret to success. In reality, it isn't. The data is not on their side. Less than 6 to 7 hours per night and you are, not metaphorically but literally, increasing cancer risk, destroying your immune system, and messing with your blood sugar in the same way a pre-diabetic person's body behaves. So here's where it gets genuinely interesting. There are 2 and only 2 things controlling how sleepy or awake you feel at any given moment. Most people have no idea either of these exist. And once you understand them, so much about your daily energy levels suddenly makes sense.
Goo goo gaga.
You have a 24-hour internal clock running inside you right now. Actually, slightly longer than 24 hours, but daylight resets it every morning so it stays on schedule. This clock is called your circadian rhythm, and it controls basically everything rhythmic in your body, your moods, hunger, metabolism, and hormones, even when you're most likely to perform at your physical peak. Walker mentions that the likelihood of breaking an Olympic record is actually tied to the time of day. Athletes naturally peak in the early afternoon. Births and deaths also cluster around the same window. Your body is running on a biological schedule, whether you acknowledge it or not. And the coolest proof of this? A French scientist named de Mairan took a plant, the Mimosa pudica, and put it in a completely dark box. No sunlight, no external cues whatsoever. The plant's leaves still roughly opened and closed on a 24-hour schedule. The rhythm was built in. It didn't necessarily need sunlight to function. It had its own internal clock. Humans proved the same thing about themselves 200 years later. Lock someone in a bunker with no natural light, and they'll still roughly follow a 24-hour sleep-wake pattern. We are more like plants than we'd like to admit. Now, what keeps this clock on time? Primarily daylight. Even on a cloudy day, the light coming through resets your rhythm, but also things like food, exercise, and social interaction. Scientists call these reset signals Zeitgebers, which is German for time givers. While your circadian clock is ticking away, your brain is also quietly building up a chemical called adenosine. Every hour you're awake, more adenosine accumulates. Think of it like a sleep debt that's charging interest. The longer you're awake, the more it builds and the heavier and sleepier you feel. After roughly 12 to 16 hours of being awake, adenosine levels get high enough that your brain basically says, okay, we're done here. We need to sleep now. And here's where caffeine comes in, because I know you're thinking about it. Caffeine doesn't give you energy. It doesn't destroy adenosine or reduce adenosine in any way. What it actually does is it blocks the receptors in your brain that adenosine would normally attach to. It's like putting tape over the low battery notification on your phone. The battery is still dying, you just can't see the warning. When the caffeine wears off, all that adenosine that was patiently waiting on the sidelines floods back in at once. That's your coffee crash. That's not the caffeine wearing off, that's just reality hitting you all at once. Which brings us to the most important caffeine rule in the book. Prevent having any coffee or caffeine after 2 p.m. ideally. caffeine has a half-life of about 5 to 7 hours. This means if you have a coffee at 3 p.m, half of that caffeine is still circulating in your brain at 10 p.m. when you're trying to fall asleep. You might fall asleep fine, but the quality of that sleep will be significantly worse than you think. You're just not aware of it because you can't feel the difference from the inside. Quick question, are you a morning person or a night person? Because there's actually a scientific answer to that. And more importantly, it's not a choice. Matthew Walker introduces the concept of chronotypes, essentially your genetically programmed sleep personality. Around 40% of people are morning types, these are known as larks. They naturally wake up early, feel great in the morning, and start fading early in the evening. Another 40% are known as evening types, these are night owls. They usually can't fall asleep until late, they wake up late, and are generally not fully functional until mid-morning at the earliest. The remaining 20% sit somewhere in the middle. And here's the part that I think a lot of people need to hear. Night owls are not lazy or undisciplined. Their genetics have just wired them to operate on a later schedule. Forcing an owl to wake up at 6 a.m. is the kind of equivalent to forcing a lark to sleep at 2 a.m. The owl isn't being dramatic. Their prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for rational thought, is literally still in a disabled and sleep-deprived state when they're woken up early. And society is not built for them. School starts early, work starts early, morning culture is everywhere, which means night owls are chronically and structurally sleep-deprived through no fault of their own. They go to bed when their biology tells them to, get woken up before their sleep is done, and then get called lazy for it. But here's the wild part. Walker says chronotypes exist for a good evolutionary reason. If everyone in a tribe slept at the same time, the tribe would be completely vulnerable for 8 hours every night. Having some people wired up to stay late and some to wake up early meant that the tribe was never fully unprotected. Owls and larks literally evolved to keep each other alive. So the next time a morning person tells you to just wake up earlier, you can tell them evolution needs you exactly where you are. So here's what we covered. Sleep is not optional maintenance, it is rather the foundation everything else is built on. Less than 6 or 7 hours and your body starts breaking down in ways you can't see or feel until it's too late. Your sleep is controlled by two forces, your circadian rhythm, which is basically your internal 24-hour clock, and adenosine, which builds up the longer you're awake and creates sleep pressure. Caffeine doesn't necessarily fix your tiredness, it rather just hides it, and it's still in your system way longer than you think. And finally, your sleep chronotype, whether you're an owl or lark, is usually genetic, not a personality flaw. In part 2, we're getting into melatonin, jet lag, and what actually happens inside your brain and body while you sleep.